Λοιπόν, να καλωσορίσουμε τον κύριο Milojcic. Είναι Γενικός Διευθυντής της Ένωσης Βιομηχάνων Λιγνίτη στη Γερμανία. Welcome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a long day now for you, and I hope I can tell you something interesting on this noon. Well, my name is Milojcic, and Milojcic is from the Balkans. My father is born Serb, was Greek Orthodox, came to Germany, and was a professor for ancient history. So and he started excavating 1952 first in Samos, and up to his death, 1978, he stayed all year, at least one season in Greek. So we had moussaka at home when other Germans did not know olive oil. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And another point is that I learned mine planning from the German professor Görgen. Maybe some of you know him. He made the master plan for the Megalopolis mine. So we learned the 10 steps as a mining engineer for a reasonable mine planning by Professor Görgen on the example of Megalopolis. And I heard Megalopolis is still working. So there are different relations personally for me to Greece, and I'm very glad to meet some of my colleagues like Dr. Galitis. We met many years ago, and it's good to be here again. I think in difficult times we have, generally, politically, even in energy policy. But I think beside my personal relation, Greece is very important for Europe, and especially in these times. So I think it's good to be here and to have this exchange. I will tell a little bit about German lignite, European policy, and at the beginning, I will say that politics are like a little bit, well, they are on some respect it's crazy, on some respect it's reasonable. And we live in a time where you have, at the same time, completely crazy things and reasonable things. And therefore it's very difficult to navigate for us. And I believe, especially in energy politics, this is the case. We have crazy things and we have reasonable things. And I work for this German Lignite Association now for 25 years. And we had protests against coal since the beginning. And we had this, I would say, history of looking for a good solution. All the time it was a fighting. And I would recommend, and I tell it the same in Germany, if you're not on the place and not willing to work for your arguments, you will lose. So the most important thing is what we have and what we do together with our Greek colleagues in Europe. We have worked together to bring our arguments again and again and try to find support. And sometimes it's difficult, but in many times it works. And so I'm a little bit skeptical, but not without hope. If you look at Europe, you see that there is an energy mix out of nuclear, coal, gas, hydro, and on the right hand you see wind and solar, and the two bars show the status 2002 compared with 2014. So you see a little bit reduction, nuclear, coal, gas, and an increase in wind and solar. This increase in wind and solar is mostly in Germany, Spain, and some other countries. But it did not change so much. And behind this, there's a long history. The long history is in the center to make power supply independent from gas and oil risks. This was the policy behind this. And up to now, I think this strategy to make electric power independent from the oil and gas risks is reasonable. It's not good to put all eggs in one basket. So we call this energy mix, and I think this is a strategy most people understand. And this is one of the key arguments we all the time use: don't put all eggs in one basket. Well, the situation in different countries is different. This depends on history, on the availability of natural resources, on political decisions. On top, you see Poland, Greece, Czech Republic, Germany, which rely very much on coal. You all know the reasons. There are coal deposits. It's politically decided to do so. And if you go down, you see, for example, France, which relies very much on nuclear energy. The conclusion I drew from this picture is there is variety in Europe, different conditions, and policy should acknowledge that there are different situations in different countries. So you cannot do the same in all countries. So you have to accept that member states have different interests, and the Brussels scene should design their politics in a way that member states can reach their energy policy targets. I think up to now, in most cases, it is done in that way. But there's one thing which is very important and which can obviously destroy this approach, and this is the most important, I would say, environmental policy instruments, the so-called emission trading scheme. In principle, emission trading is a reasonable approach. It's a market-driven instrument, and if you have a right design of the emission trading, it can work. But on this picture, you can see how crazy politics sometimes is, because in the emission trading directive, the European directive, it's written down that there is a reduction factor every year, 2.2%, referred to the year 2005. And if you take it for real, all about 12,000 installations which are covered by the emission trading scheme in Europe are not allowed to emit any CO2 in the year 2058. So I would say this is a crazy approach, even if the beginning, the instrument, maybe is not completely wrong. But you see, in the same time, it's crazy and it's reasonable. Why it's reasonable in the moment is the next picture, and why I'm hopeful. If you look at the availability and the demand for CO2 in the European Union, you see that we have a huge surplus. About 2 billion tons of CO2, which are in the market, are stored in different places. Companies and so on hold this CO2. So there's a surplus, and this surplus leads to a way that the real reduction in the coming years are not so high, because we can take CO2 from the surplus. Up to the year 2030, the pressure of CO2 prices on coal is, from our point of view, will be low. So you see today's CO2 prices are around €5 per ton. And if the market would expect that politics would tighten the market very much, the prices would be higher. So I would say the general belief is that the market will be liquid within the next 10 to 15 years, and during that times we will see what will happen. So I think from this point of view, we should be hopeful, even if the situation in Brussels, I would say, is extremely complex, because a lot of NGOs, especially green politics, try to push to reforms to tighten the market. But those, I would say, interventions are against the interest of a group of member states, especially in Eastern Europe, and I do not believe that the current reform will go much more far away than it is now under discussion. So in this point, I think we will have time for lignite industry to work. The problem is that under this, I will say, uncertainty of the emission trading scheme, new investment is extremely difficult, and so mostly it's to run the existing assets. Now I will go to Germany, and the next picture. Well, Germany is the same. It's in some respect, it's a crazy energy policy. In some respect, it's quite reasonable. And the German energy policy in midterm is reasonable, and in long term, it's crazy. So you can say, okay, we have a chance to learn, so we concentrate on the next 10 to 20 years. If you look what is key in Germany in the power supply, the first thing which is very important is phase out nuclear. Nuclear provided around 25% of the German power supply and was about 25% of the capacity. So we phase out 25% of capacity and generation. And the second point is we want to bring in more and more renewables in the system, mostly wind and PV. But if you see the electricity gap, there is a gap, and this gap must be filled. But this slide only show the kilowatt hours. That's only the, I will say, production. It's not talking about capacity. And I think production is with one side and capacity is the other side, and the topic of capacity becomes more and more important. Well, this picture shows power demand in Germany on top. You see the weeks and the weekends, how the power demand is in Germany, and you see the generation of wind and solar. The power demand in Germany normally is in the range between 50 and 75 gigawatt, and the capacity of wind and solar is around 40 each. So we have around 80 gigawatts capacity wind and solar. But here you can see that it can be zero. So if you have a strategy like in Germany to bring in more and more wind and solar, you come to the you learn, or you have to learn, that you cannot provide security of supply by this approach. And this is, I think, a question which arises now more and more, because we had security of supply from history. We had a lot of power plants which were in place, because for that reason it was no question security of supply. But this question will become more and more important. The next slide, please. Well, we call and we try. This is one of, I think this is one of the key arguments we have in the German lignite industry. I talked very much to politicians, and well, we discussed what shall we say if we have only 30 seconds time to give a message. And I think the key message is, if you go the way to build up wind and PV, you need for reasons of the security of supply, two systems. One system, which is shown here on the right hand, that's wind and PV, that is politically driven. And on the other hand, the left side, you need power plants which are available all the time, all year long. And this power plant in Germany consists portfolio of lignite, hard coal, gas, nuclear. And if you look in the future, 2030, you see a huge build-up, and you see a decrease in power plants which are available. And I think this is one of the key questions. If you accept that you need two systems for one task, for security of supply, then you come to a level where you discuss the advantages and disadvantages. Then you can discuss, well, shall we make it with gas, with hard coal, with lignite? So then you are on a level, you're away from politics, you are in a discussion of facts and figures. And that's the key message we want to deliver at Debrief in the debate, in the energy debate, and we hope that will be understood. I think most people, politicians, people understand that there's no single solution. And what public in Germany has to learn is that the way we go to prefer wind and solar is no solution. You need this second system, and that's what we try to find a majority for. And in principle, we find this majority. We had in Germany a very huge debate about a kind of climate levy, and this climate levy was designed, I would say, by green scientists, and this climate levy had killed coal, especially lignite. It was, well, but there was a huge political debate and a huge battle, and this climate levy was skipped, and we had an agreement with the government to reduce lignite, or the companies had an agreement to reduce lignite capacities about 15%, but the government bought these capacities from the companies. So they got money to reduce capacity. So this is the third, and this is the beginning of the third message we have, that lignite is not blocking this German called Energiewende, or this bright energy future. We will, I would say, be a part, and we will reduce over time our production. I just said this is this lignite reserve, now 15% of capacity, and we have expiring of two mines around 2030. That is the Jenschwalden and the Weisweiler area. This is around another 4,000 megawatts of capacity. So lignite will reduce, but can contribute a stable, I would say, a part. And that's so we come to my end, and the key messages we bring in the energy debate. The last slide. Security of supply is the most important question during transformation of the German power system. That's for everybody to understand. And if politicians are afraid of something, they're afraid of a blackout. Nobody wants to have a blackout for a longer time. This is easy to understand. And the decision to phase out nuclear and to bring in wind and solar leads, what I said, two systems for one task. And then we come to the point, what is the advantage of German lignite? The advantage of the German lignite is that the only energy source we have in Germany. We have no gas, we have no hard coal anymore, so it's the only source we have. It's very important for the regions, has a strong support in the regions, is highly accepted in the regions. We had a during this debate about this levy, the climate levy, we had a demonstration of 20,000 workers in front of the German Ministry of Economics. So people understand there's something behind if there's a big fight. And the third point is that coal will decrease in Germany. We see hard coal generation decreasing faster than lignite, but there's no reason to keep hard coal and phase out lignite, because hard coal is imported and the added value is lower, so it's good reasons for lignite. And all the time we say it's nonsense in times of emission trading to have a national action to reduce CO2, because if you have the emission trading scheme and intervene in Germany, CO2 emissions are the same as long as the cap is not changed in Brussels. So it's no, I would say, climate policy reason to reduce German lignite. These are the messages. And I told you at the beginning that I am doing that job 25 years. It's not only, I would say, one game we have to play, one day we have to play all year long in our league, and a league is politics, so we have many games every year to do, and every year I would say we have a championship, so there's no stopping in playing, so we have to do our job, and if we do it hopefully with good arguments, I think we will find a reasonable majority. Even if there are many crazy people in Germany which have illusions and so on, but at the end I think there's a chance to have a reasonable politics, and for that reason I am hopeful, and I think if I can give you advice in Greece, I think never give up, go to the playing field, be part of the game, and know that even if you one day are losing, there's a next game next week, and you have to show up again. So that's part of our business, and I wish you good luck in this respect. And I think that lignite in Greece is at least as important as lignite for Germany, and why giving up something you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Λέω άλλη μια φορά, ο κύριος Μιλojcic είναι Γενικός Διευθυντής της Ένωσης Βιομηχανιών Λιγνίτη της Γερμανίας. Έτσι.